Hello, my name is Margaret Adele, and let's talk about stupid reading anxieties. Specifically mine. You may have some too. Feel free to comment those down below. But I have compiled a list of my various dumb reading anxieties, and I know they're dumb because when I sit down and think about them logically, they make no sense, but I just can't fully get them out of my brain. So we're going to talk about them. Now, a quick side note here, there are some anxieties when it comes to reading or being a bookish person on the internet that are completely valid. For example, if you are a reader with certain triggers, you are probably anxious on whether or not this book has the thing, and that's why a lot of people are pushing for trigger warnings. If you're a reviewer, it might be something similar where you're like, oh crap, did I remember to put all the warnings for that book in that review? Or am I risking someone with those triggers reading that book based on my recommendation? Those are pretty valid anxieties. You don't want to ruin anyone's mental health. That's not what we're talking about here. These are things that I honestly believe I should not be worrying about, but I can't fully get them out of my brain. Now, thankfully, they're not necessarily holding me hostage, but they're always there. So let's begin. The first fear is that someone will go to my Goodreads challenge, specifically the part where they just line up all the covers of the books that you've read for that, how many books are you reading this year challenge? And we'll see that I have multiple covers with half-naked men on them. I don't necessarily seek out the books because of those covers. I love indie romances and romance in general, and it just happens that the vast majority of them are very female-gazy and low-key are objectifying men with the covers, so you got a lot of six-packs on a lot of covers. And for some reason, my brain has gone, well, if I have multiple of these in a row and someone comes by and sees these, they'll judge me. One, I don't even spend that much time looking at anyone else's Goodreads lineup, ever. I casually scroll through the feed and see what people have updated recently, but never I'm like, oh, I must know exactly what books this mutual has read, and I must judge the covers. I literally never do that. And if someone was to tell me that they did this, I'd be like, wow, you're an unkind person. Why are you doing that? That's very judgmental. And I would not want to be friends with them. So I don't know why I'm worried about the opinions of that kind of person, but I am. And usually what I tell myself this is for is that this is a reminder to me to switch up what I'm reading, but mostly this is just me, falling into the pitfalls of the patriarchy, if we're being honest, and being like, oh no, people might think I like the steamy books too much, but I do. That's just a thing. So I should probably get over this one, although I will admit I do like going into my Goodreads challenge and seeing variety of covers. I like seeing more of a rainbow or multicolored effect than anything else. But again, it's really just surface level, and I don't know why I'm that worried. Anxiety number 2. If I am reading a physical book in public, but I am less than halfway through it, the bookmark is less than halfway through, I have this weird anxiety that everyone's going to be looking at me, reading this book and be like, she's never going to finish that. Which why do I care? Okay, maybe someone would think that. I don't know. Again, I don't personally pay that much attention to how far someone is in a book if I see them reading in public. Yeah, maybe I'll be trying to spy the cover just to see, but I'm not they're only 150 pages in that 500-page book. I don't know if they're going to finish it. I literally have never cared about that. And again, like before, if someone else was to be look at that person, they're totally not going to finish that book, I'd be like, why are you being so unnecessarily mean right now? Why? This is an objectively unkind thing to say. You don't know that stranger. Why are we even commenting on this? But I think about it. I think about it when I'm in public, and I feel more comfortable if I'm already over halfway through a big book, because then I can be like, aha, see, random people judging me in my brain. I do read a lot. And I don't know why I need random strangers to prove to me that I read a lot. I literally read over 120 books a year. Why am I looking for random stranger validation? The next one is reading fan fictions or other work that's not on Goodreads. Again, it's all about that challenge. Now, I don't read a lot of fan fiction just in general. It's never something I got into growing up. I didn't have a lot of access to the internet every day, so I didn't have the hours necessary to read these giant fan fictions. But even today, I'm like, I could be going on Wattpad and looking up cool, weird stuff, or whatever's on Wattpad. I don't know. I haven't looked on there in a while. But the idea of doing a lot of reading for something that I can't log for my Goodreads challenge gives me anxiety, because it's like, but the number won't go up. If I read this, the big number of my things read won't go up. And I like the serotonin of that number going up. And it feels like wasted time to read a thing where the number can go up, which is stupid. Because of course it's not wasted time. If it gives you joy, it gives you joy. And if the act of reading it is giving you something, then it's giving you something. And why am I worried about this random number on Goodreads not going up? I don't know why, but you can bet your butt that if an indie author sends me a review request for a book that is not yet on Goodreads, like they have not set the Goodreads profile for it, it's one of the first things I ask, like, hey, when is it going to be on Goodreads? That's also partially because I need to file it under the shelf I have for review lists on Goodreads so I can keep track of what books I have. But also it's like, I want the number to go up high. The next anxiety is that I have not read enough of X genre to a certain extent. And I'm not even sure what the extent is, to be honest, because I am very much a jack of all trades when it comes to my reading. I do read across almost all genres. So the idea of trying to view myself or place myself as a master of knowledge in any one genre is kind of pointless. And instead, if I am trying to be like a fount of knowledge for any aspect of reading, it's for indie books. Now, this in particular is the reason kind of why this started, is because I want to be able to recommend indie books to literally anyone that asks for a recommendation. Just to get more people into indie books. So this began as I need to be well read throughout all genres of indie books to be able to recommend anything. But really, all you need is like at least a handful of recommendations, 2 or 3 at most. And in genre terms, that's pretty easy to get. Now, I might not have much more than 2 or 3 for the books that I read in any given genre, and some of them it's not even that. And obviously, I'm trying to diversify my reading in other ways. But like, it's also a point of, if I'm just not as much into that one genre, why am I pushing myself? I'm not paid for this. I make no income off of this. So the idea that I'm going to try to treat this as a job is pointless. And I really should just stick to the genres that I know I like, and occasionally sprinkle in some more out of the box choices, because I do occasionally love the odd horror novel or military sci-fi. But like, I don't need to try to be a master in any of those. No one should be trying to be a master in any genre. That's just a weird goal to have. Just read what you like. I don't know why this is in my brain. The next one is about audiobooks. And honestly, since I've written this list, my opinion on this has changed slightly. But this anxiety is that listening to audiobooks on a faster speed ruins them. That it can't be done. You're not getting the full experience if you listen to it on a faster speed. And I get that this is like maybe a hot take, because listening to audiobooks at higher speeds, 1.5 or 2 times speed, is very common, especially because in most cases, especially if you are like an avid reader, like you're on the book internet, you're here, you probably read faster than the audiobook will be read to you. But there's also something to be said for the art of it, the craft of the narrator voice and the character voices. So I'm always worried that if I do try to listen to any audiobook on a faster speed, that like I've lost something. And I actually changed my tune on this slightly, because as part of the Reindeer Readathon in December of 2021, I actually listened to multiple audiobooks just because I was kind of in a race against the clock to get them finished. And one of the prompts was to listen to an audiobook. And I actually found that I can go up to like max of 1.4. Like that's the most I can get up. I cannot get past 1.4, and even that 1.4 like makes me anxious because I'm like, am I losing it? And I still don't listen to it at that speed at the beginning of the book when it's like dropping all the exposition. Like that's for later on when I got the flow of things. And I'm never going to be a very big audiobook person in general. Like I had a free trial of Audible for a hot minute, but in general, that's not my preferred form of reading. So I don't know why I'm so worried about this in particular when it's not even a form of reading that I indulge in often. So like maybe there's something to this. Maybe there's a little bit of extra artistry that you can catch if you listen to it at the regular 1 times speed. But in general, I don't even know why I'm thinking about this. This next one is very specific to being a reviewer, and that is that indie authors will be mad at me if I say no to their review request. This fear had me in like an ironclad grip the first 6 months to a year that I was reviewing for this channel. It used to throttle me because I was like, they're gonna be so mad if I say no. Now, since then, I have learned, and I have to keep reminding myself, that most indie authors, when they send requests for a review, won't get a reply at all, let alone a respectful no thank you. And most of the time, very, very vast majority of the time, when I say no thank you, and I usually will try to give some kind of reason or my reasoning as to why, the response back is perfectly fine. I think the absolute worst I've ever gotten was like some low-key passive-aggressive comment of like, oh, well, keep the book on a back burner anyway, or something like that. Like, I've never gotten anyone responding to me in the 3 years that I've done this, in the literally like 150 or more review requests that I have gotten, many of which I have said no to, maybe even more than 150 requests at this point. I know I'm over 100 reviews put out. I literally never had an indie author mad at me for saying no to a review request, or at least not that I've seen. Like maybe they were tweeting passive-aggressively somewhere else and I didn't see it, but I've never had an angry author in my inbox because of this, so I really should let this one go, but I can't. This next one is part of the reason I've changed the way I do things on my channel a lot of the time, and that is the anxiety that I will announce or put on my channel or any of my socials that I am doing a readathon and start it and then not finish it. And again, will like then be like judged for not finishing. Which again, if someone else was to come to me and be like, look at that person, they joined that readathon and they didn't read all the prompts, I'd be like, why do you care? Why? Why is that even a thing that you're thinking about? But I'm thinking about other people thinking that about me. Which I know is dumb, because if you thought that is an objectively unkind thing, readathons are a lot of reading, depending on what kind of readathon you're doing. Well, obviously all of them are a lot of reading. That's why they're called readathons. It's supposed to be like a marathon. And it's very common that people will participate and not finish, or purposely participate at a lower level knowing they will not fulfill all of the prompts. And most readathons will even have formatting that allows you to participate while reading fewer books. Like, everyone's trying to be more accessible and more friendly. And I still get so concerned, especially with some of these readathons that have hyper-specific prompts, knowing that I don't do well with the hyper-specific TBR. So in general, and for several other reasons, I just don't do as many readathons anymore. But even the ones I do, I tend to not talk about as much. Like, I was surprised I got as involved with the reindeer readathon in December as I did, probably because I had all that energy saved up for in December, and then in December didn't happen in 2021. But I genuinely don't like getting that invested in talking about readathons, not just because it makes the shelf life of your videos significantly smaller, but because it's like, what if I didn't finish? Or what if I don't follow through on that TBR? Or what if, and the idea that people are going to judge me for that when I know that if they judge me for that, I should not care about their opinion at all. I mean, I have like other issues with participating in readathons just from my own brain, but that's a surprising big one. This last one might be a little bit fraught and could probably be its own video, but it is an anxiety that kind of straddles the line between valid and dumb, and it is one that I have been very steadily working on. And that is the anxiety that if I am reading a book by a marginalized identity, about a marginalized identity, that I will be seen as prejudiced and biased if I rate it low. And the reason that this is both dumb and valid is that there's always that fear that will actually happen. The thing is that the fear should not be that people will misconstrue me and totally misunderstand me and see me as prejudiced when I am not, but rather that review with a low rating will reveal a heretofore uninvestigated prejudice that I either was wholly unaware of or had not given enough thought to. Because it does happen that there are people who will rate books low by marginalized authors for biased reasons. Readers who will rate a book about disability low if it didn't have the inspiration porn they wanted or didn't go into depth describing everything about that person's disability, or straight women who will rate a book written by a queer man low because they're so used to reading MLM romances catered to their gaze that the idea of reading this book catered to a gaze that is not theirs being different makes it bad in their eyes. The thing is, though, and I know I'm not the only person to have this anxiety, is a lot of people respond to this anxiety incredibly poorly. Because the proper response to this is to be able to look back on your ratings and explain to yourself why you rated the book that way. Because it is still possible that a book written by a marginalized person is just something you didn't like. You just gotta make sure you know the reasons why. So if I go back at a book and be like, why did I not like this specifically? And I can name the reasons, and the reasons did not have anything to do with the identity, then that's fine. But if they're kind of connected, maybe like it was a book written by an autistic author and I thought the dialogue was weird or something, and I gotta go back through and be like, okay, is this an autism thing that I'm judging this book for, or is it just a poorly written dialogue thing? And the better you get at that, and the more you reevaluate your own prejudices and biases, you kind of get better at recognizing it, or at the very least, once you are open to the idea that there is something in your head that might still be there in a negative way, but you have already made the choice to be the kind of person that will reevaluate that moving forward, it's less of an anxiety. These days, if someone wants to be like, hey, you said X in this review, but actually this people group has been stereotyped as being X, I can reevaluate that, and I know that I am the kind of person that will be like, crap, I will add in a note, I will whatever. I know I am that kind of person, which helps relieve a lot of that anxiety. This idea that for the majority of things, everything that I have read in the way of especially anti-racism says everyone's aware that those biases and those prejudices are ingrained in people's brains. They're not asking anyone to be perfectly without them. That's impossible. They're asking for people not from those marginalized identities to not be dicks about it, to recognize that things need to be changed, and to do the work to do the change. So if you are doing the change, it's not quite as scary. And I would hope that I have already built my reputation online for at least those who know me, those who would be giving me good faith critiques on this, that I have already established myself as a reviewer who is willing to make those changes and look at those things in depth. But also, in a lot of cases, this is a dumb anxiety, or rather is used in a dumb way, because a lot, especially white reviewers, will do this, will use this anxiety as a reason to just not read marginalized authors at all. Or, my personal favorite, will use this as an excuse to just not say a marginalized author's name. Where, like, if the if the author has a very specific, like, non-white surname, rather than take the time to say it correctly, this big, oh, I won't say that, I'll butcher it. No, that's dumb. Take the time, learn how to say the name. So yeah, this one straddles the line. And again, it could probably get its own video on how specifically white reviewers as a whole would rather avoid reviewing marginalized books entirely, or pretending that all critiques of their critiques are in bad faith, rather than admitting that maybe they got something hidden in the crevices of their brain that they have not investigated. It's a whole thing. It's a whole big thing. But I've already taken up a lot of time with it, so I think we're going to call it there. So that is it. My list of stupid reading anxieties, with one that's like only kind of stupid if you look at it the wrong way. Anyway, if you have any anxieties that I have not brought up here, please feel free to put those down in the comments below. I've heard some people talking about having anxieties about things like reading the hyped book and not liking it, or other kinds of things, and I would love to hear about those, so please let me know. And with nothing else to say, I hope you have a wonderful day and a marvelous tomorrow.